Why did you want to make this movie? What was so interesting? What was so special about having to make this story?
I've written a lot of love stories, but the first love of my life really is pop music. As you can see from some of the films, there's lots of songs in them. And I really wanted to write a film about pop music and how lucky we are to live in a time with such great music instead of having to listen to horrible classical music all the time. And I couldn't think of how to do it for years. And then I remember these pirate radio stations, which were crazy places where, 10 insane egomaniacs would live on a boat in the middle of a sea for months on end with no girls. And it struck me as a funny idea. So I thought I can write a funny film about that, and that will be my film about pop music. So
let's see, you were born in '56, so you were 10 years old when this incident happened with pirate radio in the late '60s.
Yeah, so I do remember pirate radio. I mean, the movie starts with a little boy with a radio under his pillow, and I definitely did that for at least 2 years.
So that was personal experience.
Yeah, personal experience. I was at a boarding school, and when they switched off the lights, you had to be completely silent, and I would listen. The only friends in the world that I had were the pirate radio DJs. So it is from personal experience. But then this is also a film. At one point, Philip Seymour Hoffman says, "These are the best days of our lives," and it's also a film about being 25, about how great it is to be young, with no job, with no family, with your friends, in a horrible flat, listening to too much music. So it's that film as well, so it's about what I remember, but it's also just about being a young man.
You've got a lot of talent in this movie and a lot of great actors. How do you control a lot like that on a boat?
Well, they're on the boat, of course, so they couldn't escape me, which was very good. I mean, we had because the movie really is about 12 people in a room, they had to work out a way of not getting bored. And they did that by really thinking about their characters, really thinking about what their characters thought about other people. So in every scene, even if I was concentrating on some conversation over here, the others would be playing cards or playing darts or having an argument about whether the Beatles were better than the Stones. And so we all took responsibility for keeping every scene lively and interesting. And in the end, there's more improvisation in the film than there is in any other film I've
Which you
done.
see in the end of the movie when the credits roll down, that there's a lot of outtakes.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that we did is we got all the people playing disc jockeys to actually record an hour of their show. One, because we thought it would be useful when we were editing the movie, but also we wanted them to know what they were like as disc jockeys, because there's no point making a film about guys who are drinking cups of coffee and having games of table football if they didn't know who they were. So we actually have a lot of material of all the guys being disc jockeys.
What about, where did the idea of using iPods? Because I read that somewhere that you use iPods to help the characters know who they're going to play.
Yeah, what we did was because when I started thinking about the movie, I've given so much money to iTunes in the last 2 years, I can't tell you. But I downloaded every single song from the 60s that I loved. And then I worked out a playlist for each disc jockey. So Nick Frost, these would be his 30 songs. Then this would be Rhys Darby's 30 songs. And then I gave a little mini iPod to everybody on the film, which had 270 songs in it, all of these people, so everyone would understand the character of the music that was played by each DJ. By the end of the movie, everyone was obsessed by the music of 1966, 1967. It was like a sort of drip torture. They had so much of it, they had to learn to love it, because when we got on the boat every morning, which we would get on every morning, as we sailed out to sea for an hour, we would just play music really loud on huge speakers on the boat, and then on the way back play music really loud, and often during scenes play music loud. So it was like brainwashing. The movie's inspired by lots of things. I mean, I hope that's what's going to make it a rich, meal, because there is a lot about the 60s, and particularly about the clash between the older generation who'd lived through the war.
Played by Kenneth Branagh.
Played by Kenneth Branagh and Kenneth Branagh's moustache. And the younger generation. Then there's a lot about the music. And then I think there's just a lot about friendship, about how men interact with each other
So
when there aren't girls
so
around.
it's basically a coming of age for men and also for Britain. In this
Yeah,
case.
that's a good way of looking at it.